Welkom bij een nieuwe aflevering van de Nederlandse Kubernetes Podcast. De podcast over Kubernetes voor iedereen. Ik ben Ronald Kers en ik zit zoals altijd met...
Hallo Ronald.
Jan Stomphorst, Solutions Architect bij ACC ICT.
Zeker. We hebben een gesprek met mensen uit Amerika. Dat is wel heel geweldig.
Ja, en daar maken we graag tijd voor op de late uurtjes. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce Audra and Katie. Welcome from CNCF.
Thank you, Ronald. Thank you, John. Yeah, thank you. It's awesome being here.
To start with Audra, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Absolutely. So my name is Audra Montenegro. I currently work at CNCF as a core program manager for two specific programs. One is the KCD program, Kubernetes Community Days, and the other is our CNCG program, so Cloud Native Community Groups. And previously, I worked at O'Reilly Media for over 7 years, working on global events, specifically on the content side with the program committee and program chairs. So that's my main gig prior to CNCF. So open source is in my blood. And then in between, I did, the virtual shift that a lot of us had to do during the pandemic at a startup called DataStax.
Okay.
Nice.
And the KCD, that's the Kubernetes Community Days.
Yes.
They're specific for every country, are they?
So it did kind of start out on a country level, but now that they've grown, they've gone to a city level. When I joined in 2022, we had 12 KCDs, 16, and then we doubled to 32 the following year. And then we're tracking to 35 this year, but 2 of those are virtual.
Okay, nice. And Katie, can you please introduce yourself?
I'm Katie Greenley. I work for the CNCF, Cloud Native Computing Foundation. I've been on the CNCF for the last 9 years, 10 years at the Linux Foundation. Overall, I run our community and marketing for CNCF. So focusing on programs like ambassadors and supporting Audra with the Kubernetes Community Days, supporting Audra when it comes to our cloud native community groups, and then helping to provide marketing strategy around CNCF related projects, as well as just CNCF as a whole, is kind of what I do for the foundation. And like I said, I've been here 9 glorious years, started out in events and then migrated over to the marketing side of things.
Does CNCF needs a lot of marketing? I think it's selling itself.
It does sell itself, but yeah, there is a lot of marketing that happens behind the scenes, right? We still need people who come up with campaigns around like our Kubestronaut program. We need people to help with creating content, right? There's CNCF host or staff posted blogs. So we need people who are kind of running that portion of it. We obviously need campaigns around QCons and Cloud Native Cons, but also our smaller events that a lot of people may not know. So like PromCon Europe is happening in September. You've got Litmus Chaos Con that's happening in September. Dapper Day is happening in October. These are all project-specific events. And we still need someone from a marketing side providing the support for those.
Yeah, you also got the Sustainability Week coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sustainability Week is another one that's a big focus for our marketing team as well, and definitely from a social standpoint.
And our community groups are big participants in that on a meetup side.
I always read the Cube Weekly mail thing. I think that's awesome. And I was reading about the Kubernetes Arconauts or Cosmonauts.
Kubestronauts, yeah.
Kubestronauts, yeah. And we've got 500 Kubestronauts at the moment. I was reading. That's awesome.
Huge. It's really awesome. It's nice to see that program really grow, but people to get the recognition, right? Doing these certifications are no easy feat. It takes a lot of planning and what is the word that I'm looking for?
A lot of commitment for the
Commitment.
study.
Yeah. But like studying, definitely to be able to take the exam. So I think it's a great feature that we have that got implemented this year, because someone who's done 5 exams like that to further their career path, to further their education within Kubernetes, and cloud native in general, really should be recognized for that, because it does take up a lot of time and commitment.
So, Ronald, do you know what it is?
Well, from the stories you told, it's like you need 5 exams to go. If you need to complete 5 exams in the CNCF space in total, or is it Kubernetes related?
It's 5 specific Kubernetes related exams. So it's you're really gonna push my
It's all
my knowledge on this one, right?
Certified Kubernetes security exam.
Yeah.
The KCNA, so the Kubernetes certified. Oh my God, as their application development.
Certified
CKA.
Kubernetes. Yeah. Administrator, the CKA. Certified Kubernetes application developer, CKAD. Certified Kubernetes security specialist, CKS. Kubernetes and cloud native associate, KCNA. Kubernetes and cloud security associated, KCSA.
Yeah.
So many acronyms here.
So many acronyms.
Yeah.
And when you asked about it, all I could think of was the acronyms. I was going to be like, yeah, it's a CKAD, CKA. And I was like, no one's going to know what that means.
And from my perspective, the security ones are the most difficult.
Yeah, that's something I hear quite frequently within the community, is that the security ones are very difficult. And it takes a lot of extra setting to be able to pass them.
Yeah, but security is also one of the most important things. So you can can make it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Good reason. Yeah.
There's a good reason to make it more difficult. Yeah. Totally. So a question for both of you, just to wind it back a little bit. So what's that drew you both to the CNCF, and why is open source so important to you?
So as I mentioned, I was with O'Reilly Media for over 7 years. So they were the first publishers back in the late 70s, early 80s of open source programming language books. So Tim O'Reilly.
Are they still selling books?
They are, but they're more the virtual books, right? Or the ebooks, I should say. But they do give away some physical stuff at events that they sponsor, like they sponsor KubeCon every year, for example. But that since they did away with their in-person events, they shuttered them back when the pandemic happened. They focused on these super streams and online training. And so what I was saying was I worked heavily with the open source community, whether it was in software architecture or more on like front-end velocity and the development around front-end architecture, or even solid. So that's like your hardware as well. It was more on like robotics. And then Strata, which was the data conference. But these were all surrounding open source technologies that supported these topic areas. So CNCF attracted me because it's very similar in the sense of spreading the knowledge of innovators and supporting these people who dedicate their free time to open source. And just a huge advocate for it and its scaling companies. I mean, the open transparency aspect of it all really can bring a lot to people's architecture and sustain their stack, make sure that it's quality.
For me, as I noted, I started working for the Linux Foundation 10 years ago. I came in from like an interesting background. I worked for a tech company prior to coming to the Linux Foundation. But prior to that, I worked for a nonprofit, Invertebrate Zoo. And I always really liked the nonprofit portion of it. But tech kind of found its way into my work path as I kind of decided, how to move forward. And from there, tech really took a primary because of all the changes that it's always bringing to the world. I always thought that was kind of cool to be part of that, right? It's always changing every single day. Nothing stands still. It's always a challenge. So when the Linux Foundation was hiring, I felt like that merged my two passions really nicely. I brought in the nonprofit portion of it, but also the tech portion. And then to bring in open source, which I didn't know much about 10 years ago, learning that like it's about bringing the collective mini to do work together to do something that one person would do, right? Like many minds are better than one mind. Really kind of stuck with me, and it has been a reason why I've stayed in the open source sector for the last 10 years, because as much as I like to think I have all the answers, I know I don't have all the answers. So it's really great to be in an industry where people remind you that you have all the answers, or help grow on your ideas, which is the best part, right? I come forward with an idea and someone comes in with like, oh, well, but what if we do this? And what if we took it this way? And then I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that, because my mind was so tunnel visioned on one way. So it really allows you to step outside of yourself and to work as a team, which I think I just thrive better in. And then, like I said, for the last 9 years, it's been primarily CNCF focused. I came in from the event standpoint of like running KubeCons and all the other events that CNCF has put on throughout the years, helping to support run PromCon, gRPC Conf, things like that. Have always kind of been a passion, and just the community within the CNCF is electric is the best way I can describe it, right?
Electric?
Like electric. Everyone's so excited and everyone has so many ideas, and they're so welcoming, and there hasn't been kind of like this ceiling of possibilities that the project can do. It's like, oh, but what if we go here? And then it's like, oh yeah, we could go there. And I kind of like that. It comes with its own set of challenges as we bring in more projects, right? We're at 190 different projects underneath the CNCF umbrella. We have all these, it's a lot. We have all these different programs. We do a lot of different things. So CNCF keeps me on my toes. As much as it can drive me crazy at days, it also challenges me in a really positive way of wanting to be the best version of myself when it comes to work.
Is it not becoming too big?
I think we could always be bigger. I think a lot of people on the team can feel that way too. I think there's a lot of possibilities within the cloud native applications and different verticals that we can be just venturing in. I will say that in order for us to continue to grow at the capacity that we're growing, it would be nice to have additional people on staff to help support it. And we are looking at that from a CNCF standpoint of how do we utilize our resources that we have today, and what resources do we need tomorrow to be able to continue to grow the way that we do.
But you're only located in the US, right? Do you also have an overseas office?
So the CNCF, we're a global company, so it's people based all over the place. We don't have a specific office. There is, like the Linux Foundation technically has an office, but it's like where mail goes to. That's pretty much it. We do have a European office as well, again, where mail goes to. But everybody works from home, and it's been that way since the beginning, since I've been here for the last 10 years. And I think even before that, they just recognized that they could get really great talent and really great people in the right roles if they didn't limit where people worked from and where they were based. And if they gave people the flexibility to work from home, right? Like I have the flexibility to set my hours and get my work done based off of the schedule that fits for me and my family.
That's the beauty of a global community too, right? So it's like, oh, okay, that night I'm going to touch base with the Asia Pacific folks, and then early in the morning I'll touch base with the European folks. And
yeah, you're all over the world.
Yeah.
Cool. I hear you talk about KubeCon and we've been to 2 KubeCons now with the podcast, and we're looking forward to the next one. Can you walk us through a little bit into the planning of such a large event of KubeCon?
Yeah. So for KubeCon Cloud Native Cons, a lot of people, I don't think, recognize that it takes many years to put those events on. We're looking at locations 2, 3, 4 years out, because we've got a subset of like standards of like what places we can go to. Like, is the venues large enough to accommodate us? Right? Can it feed 10,000 people? Like, do they have the catering in place? Things like that. There's a lot of different like factors that play into it. But once you start planning a KubeCon, there's a team of like 15 event planners who are planning all kinds of different aspects, because KubeCon Cloud Native Con is a layered event. You've got someone who's kind of like primarily overseeing the event and the strategy and ensuring that we're growing with what the community needs, right? There's a lot of times where the community comes forward and recommends tracks that we should be adding into the CFP process and overall for the event. So it's like someone who has to like oversee that track, like those things coming in, and how do we place it within the event, and do we have enough space to be able to accommodate that? What is the room sizes? So you've got people who have very specific roles, and it's a lot, and some people work on several different tasks on top of it. So you've got people who are running like rooms that are making sure that we have enough rooms to accommodate not just like the primary program, but also all the ancillary events that take place. So that's like your Empower Us and
attendee party, like, yeah. And then you've got like a mentorship program, like mentor workshops. So there's lots of different things that happen. So someone oversees the rooms. You've got someone who's helping with the content. So they're working with the co-chairs to keep the co-chairs on task, and that they're reviewing things, and they're guiding them through the process of how to plan a KubeCon, because we rotate co-chairs frequently. They do it for a full year, and then they are three KubeCons, and then they move on to move out, and a new person comes in. So it's someone's job to be able to, like, you've got to educate someone and teach them the process as they come in new, and then by the second KubeCon Cloud Native Con, they've got it, and then by the third, they've got it down pack, and a new person's kind of coming in at that point too.
Like a shadow.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got that kind of happening, and then they've got to oversee all the content that comes in, all the CFPs, and working with the program committee to ensure that they're on task with like reviewing, and then they're taking that over the track chairs, and then the track chairs are reviewing and bubbling it up to the co-chairs, right? So it's like a lot of project management is a big portion of event planning, right? It's all these different perspectives that kind of come into play, and they all kind of work together. And if one person is struggling, which is the best part of the events team, is people come in and help support that person. So we're really lucky in that.
Yeah, Audra.
I was just going to say that there's a team that manages sponsorships, a team that manages marketing, a team that manages registration, a specific person that manages the scholarships, the Dan Kahn scholarships. It's a lot of moving parts for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you also need to take into account that it gets bigger every year.
Yep.
Yeah,
it does. Every year it does. And I would say every KubeCon, as much as like we say, oh, this is the plan for the year, what the needs for KubeCon Cloud Native Con Europe is not the same needs that KubeCon Cloud Native Con China needs, or KubeCon Cloud Native Con North America needs, or even now our newest KubeCon Cloud Native Con India, right? So it's not like there's some copy and paste from each event, but it's not a copy and paste event every single time. We've got to really listen to what the community needs at that time and what the community is focused on in terms of technology, but also the overall foundation and projects.
Which one is bigger? The American one?
As of right now, of those 4, KubeCon, Cloud Native Con Europe is one of our biggest KubeCons to date this year in 2024. But I don't know where we'll end up with numbers when it comes to KubeCon, Cloud Native Con North America. We're still right in the process of registrations, and we'll have a better idea when we get closer to the event, what size of how, where it kind of compares to Europe versus North America.
Yeah, I also heard that Africa is also an upcoming technology part of the world.
Africa is an upcoming tech hub for the world, and it is something that we are supporting through our Kubernetes Community Days program. We've had one event that's happened in Africa, correct, Audra?
Yeah, there was a virtual event where I know the Nigerian folks are looking to do an in-person one. They tried this year, but it didn't work out as a co-located event. Then in Ghana, there is a virtual event happening this year as well. And so there are communities out there, and if they're not producing KCDs, they're producing meetups for their community groups.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're starting to see the growth.
Yeah, it's so cool to see it. It's crossing borders everywhere. It's becoming a very large community from every part of the world. I think there are very few events or things that are like this. So it's really great to see. The only thing I would like to remark about the KubeCon is don't do it during the Ramadan.
Yeah, we
2 years in a row I couldn't eat.
Yeah, it is something that's another thing, right? Is we have an event person who's looking at the calendar, and we have a certain kind of like, here's the set months that we're looking at to host the event, right? It's not like, we always host it on, March 2nd through March 6th. I'm throwing out random dates. But we typically are like between March to May is kind of what we're looking at for the time frame for Europe. And then we've got to go out to different convention centers with a request for proposal. And it depends on like which ones come back to us, which ones fit the standards that we have, and then what dates they have open. So we're a little bit kind of at a bit of a mercy of like what the convention centers have. Some of them don't even have dates depending on like when you're looking, which is why we're currently looking at like 8 years out right now for KubeCons, because we're so large, we have to really start planning that far in advance to ensure that we're getting the dates that we want. So it is something that we've heard from the community, and it is something that someone's taking into consideration when they're looking at dates.
Yeah, like a special lunch box for those people to have something in the evening because they can't eat the lunch during the day. Well, just some ideas I can try.
Well, I love it. I will pass it on to the event team. I can't make any guarantees, but they always love those kind of requests, because we do really pride ourselves of putting a focus on what the community needs.
Yeah, we've also been to the diversity and inclusion meetup during KubeCon also. So it's really nice to see there is a lot of different things happening in that aspect. So cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the next one is in America, and which dates are those?
Yeah, KubeCon, Cloud Native Con North America is happening November 12th through the 15th in Salt Lake City, Utah. We're really excited about that event. Salt Lake City is a surprising tech hub that has grown over the last few years, and we're excited to see what that community there can bring forth for KubeCon, Cloud Native Con, and CNCF in general.
Cool. And the next one in Europe is going to be 1 till 4 of April in London.
In London, yeah.
And then
awesome.
And then we already announced all the way out through 2026. So it will be Salt Lake City, then London, then Atlanta, and then Amsterdam, and then Los Angeles.
Amsterdam. We like that.
I would prefer to have it in Spain or something like that, but
should also be also.
We've been to Spain twice, and there is always the possibility we could go back to it. It is on a list of venues that can accommodate KubeCon.
Yeah.
When that will happen, I can't tell you, but it is on the list. You know, we've hosted in both Barcelona and Valencia. So,
okay. Or Italy, because we have, so as you know, we have got a lot of Italians here in the Netherlands in the community group. So
and we have a very robust Italian community in Italy as well, that they host their own KCD. They have a very successful cloud native community group, and they would love to have a KubeCon, Cloud Native Con North or EU in Italy. We hear it quite frequently.
To look at the KCD and the community driven events, how do you see they have evolved over the years? Audra.
I can jump in on this one. So, I mean, we talked a little bit about it in the beginning with it being more country-based in terms of naming and attracting folks that are, it's more welcoming if you name it as a country-based event. But at the same token, we found over time that more people within a country would like to host as well. Granted, every region is different, right? European countries are very small. India is huge, for example. China is huge. So they evolved in the sense that if we were going to name these KCDs by city, the Europeans tend to take it more like a tour. So, hey, in Italy, let's do it in Milan this year. Let's do it in Bologna this year. And some groups kind of travel with each other and work together. But then others are like, I'm going to host one in Berlin and I'm going to host one in Munich, and they collaborate together on a different scale, but at least they're, open and transparent about timing, or if they're even going to do a KCD that year. And then, maybe do some community partnership work in terms of marketing each other's events. But yeah, in terms of, the evolution of these events, some of them were getting really big too. And we're like, hey, this doesn't feel like a community event when it's over 500 people, because you lack that intimacy. Then there's a higher stress with the liability in terms of what sponsorship expectations are. So we really wanted to make sure that the initial goal for these KCDs being, 150 to 300 in size in terms of attendees stuck around and really felt like they had that intimate learning experience and that mind share.
Okay, so that's why you made the changes for the KCD 2.0.
Exactly. So you mentioned 2.0. We just launched the refresh of the program on August 5th. And we are looking to support KCDs with monetary support, as well as more in-person appearances and grander perks that are more dedicated on quality over quantity. And like Katie mentioned, we are a small team. So, we can provide that quality at a certain number, and then of course budget properly. So what that means is only 30 KCDs next year, so we can properly support them.
Okay, yeah, because as you know, we've also heard from the current KCD organizers globally are having some concerns about restrictions. Restrictions is imposed in the 2.0 version. Is there something you can say to them to maybe help them out a little bit? Because
I'm glad that you brought that up. And when I say we, Audra and myself have hosted a lot of calls with many of the organizers over the last few weeks since the announcement of the 2.0 program. And we're inviting anyone who's, has hosted in the past or looking to host to feel free to reach out to us, because we are always happy to answer those questions, especially when it comes to what they feel could be restrictions. What I can say is in order for us to be able to sustain the program and for the program to grow properly and for us to provide the resources and the strategy behind how we utilize the program in the whole kind of like matrix that is the CNCF, we have to put some standardization in place. And we're the best part of open source, right, is I think we're kind of learning by doing, right? We've implemented this program and we at first didn't know where it was going to go or what kind of reception it was going to get. Is it going to be a program that people want to be participating in, or was it going to be a program that we hosted for a year and then it went away? So we've got to kind of, now that we've had it run successfully for 2 years, how to take a look at it from a microscope of like, what's working well, what's not, what's the top requests that we're getting. And we recognize that what we've put in place may not fit for every KCD. Right? There's going to be some KCDs that have outgrown the size of the program, but we still want to support their program as they kind of venture forth into other areas when it comes to it. But we have to put standardization in place just to ensure that we're protecting the community and also protecting the brand, and that we're able to continue to move forward with providing the correct resources to scaling this program properly. I think we'll continue to see growth in the program starting set forward after 2025 into 2026. And there may be additional revisions that come out of the changes that we made in 2025 for 2026. I think that's the best part about CNCF. We're always looking to evolve and change and be flexible and listen to the feedback. So anyone who is kind of worried about these standards, I welcome them to reach out to me and I'm happy to have a conversation with them. I personally think that some of these standards, you'll see little to no change in how you run your day-to-day program, with the exception of like, oh, now you're using a new tool that we're providing for you, right?
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's more like if I look at it from a little bit more from the outside, that is people getting the impression that the freedom and the whole community aspect is a little bit lost because of the new rules. The events are mostly self-carried. You needed to, as a community group, you had to look for the sponsors, the venue. You had to be the liability aspect, the financial aspect, the insurance aspect. And now, and then there was always I think there was often the question from what can the CNCF do to help us in this? And I think you picked up that role, but you also put in some restriction to have like a certain standard you want to provide and have for those events. If I'm interpreted correctly from where I'm sitting.
Yeah. And we've heard that a lot from a lot of people, that they feel like the community aspect is getting a little lost. For me, I don't think so. I think that this just helps to ensure that when you're working within the community, we're able to provide the level of support that our team's able to do within reason, right? And yeah, I recognize that a lot of organizers who are hosting a KCD put in a lot of effort, because it is not easy to do an event, and they are taking on a lot of risk. And we
spare time.
In their spare time.
Yeah, often
right.
A lot of time.
Yeah, a lot of them have full-time jobs, and then they're doing this on top of it. And to put on an event can be a full-time job. And we've heard that a lot. I think in order for us to make the changes that we need to for the program, it's going to feel like there's like some loss of community. I don't think that there is going to be. From where I sit and from the reviews and even talking with leadership, I think this is going to help the community in a lot of ways. We have to provide some kind of standardization in the sense that like someone doesn't misrepresent the Kubernetes branding, right? Misuse of the trademarking. So we have to put some of that standardization in place to ensure that, and it wasn't there before. If we had rolled this out when we first rolled out the program, I think there would have been less hesitation around it. I think it's because like we're having to come in and kind of retroactively add these terms in. It makes it a little bit harder for people.
We should have been doing it all along, because we do take on a lot of liability with code of conduct issues if venues aren't paid off, if a speaker is all men or a speaker lineup is all males. There's just using our likeness alone, we do get a lot of responsibility thrown on our plate.
Yeah. So I think that there's a way forward through all of this. And again, like I said, we're hearing these feedback. We're not taking it lightly in the sense of like the CNCF is just going, oh, this is the way it has to be. But it is how we're moving forward for 2025. But that may change come 2026.
Yeah.
So you're looking for much more quality in the events.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're looking from a CNCF standpoint, it is definitely, Audra said it before, quality over quantity. And we've seen the program grow a lot, and we recognize that there's a lot of different places in the world that really benefit from being able to host in-person events and pulling the community together. But not every single community needs a KCD. And some communities can really benefit from having frequent cloud native community groups on a regular basis that happen, either monthly or bi-monthly or quarterly. Some can benefit from hosting like a study group for people to do like certified Kubernetes administrator tests, right? There's a lot of different ways that people can bring the community together, and it doesn't always have to be that formal KCD program. And that is kind of, I think, part of like this restructuring of the program is to have communities really think about, do they need a KCD? Is that something that, like, if you're in a community that is just starting out, like, is a KCD the right approach for you? Probably not. Probably hosting a regular meetup is more appropriate, or hosting a full day, like a half day program, just to see if people are interested in kind of doing a more formal event would be a better approach. I think that there's a lot of variations of ways people can bring their community together, but it doesn't always have to be in the KCD program and standards.
And if people want to start up and meet up, just starting small, can they get help from CNCF to organize their meetups?
Absolutely. So on our community website, community.cncf.io, we recently just made the application process transparent through GitHub issues. And so folks can apply for a chapter if there isn't already an existing one out there. And then we get them started with the assets that are needed, the platforms that are needed. I have office hours weekly if people just don't know where to start, they're struggling. Community connections. So, asking the folks that are in their country, how does it work for you? Speaker introductions through the ambassador program, or even internal CNCF folks are happy to come and speak virtually, at least if they can't in person. But Katie's worked really hard on the ambassador program and expanding it. So we do have those arms and legs that extend out and represent CNCF's core values and the projects properly. And so a lot of the opportunity that comes within ambassadorship is speaking. And we heard a lot from our community groups, like, this is hard to get started.
Yeah.
So we're here to help get that started.
And ambassadors, just touching on that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get to be an ambassador, and what does an ambassador do?
Yeah, so we have an application that happens every twice a year. So we do the first half and the second half. Right now, our application process is open right now for the second half. We have a set of kind of standards and requirements when it comes to being an ambassador. It's someone who's over the age of 18, someone who is actively involved in the community on in one or more areas within the CNCF. So that could be like someone who is a part of a tag. It doesn't mean they have to be a tag chair. It could just be that they regularly attend tag meetings and they're involved in contributing to the tag. They could be a maintainer on a project. They could have a dev stat score of, I think we have a minimum of 30 dev stats. So someone who's actively contributing consistently. So not even just being a maintainer, but just someone who's actively contributing to a project within CNCF and doing it quite frequently. Someone who is an organizer of a KCD or someone who is an organizer of our cloud native community groups. So hosting the meetups on our community.cncf.io platform. Someone who is regularly posting content. So if that was like something people love to do, is like writing blogs about different projects within the CNCF or creating videos or podcasts.
Podcasting.
Yeah, that was his actual question. What do I need to do to become an ambassador?
Yeah, I love it. You buried the lead a little bit. For me, it's anyone who is contributing and making an impact within the CNCF space. And it from that standpoint, I think a lot of people always feel like to make an impact, you have to do a whole lot. And I just don't believe in that. I think to make an impact, you have to do something really well, and enjoy doing it, right? If you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're not going to be effective in anything that you do. So if someone was thinking podcasting was the way that they should do it, like if you don't like podcasting, don't do it.
Yeah.
Both of you clearly love podcasting. It's very natural. It comes very easy. So like that is a great platform for you to present when you're filling out your ambassador application. And it's something that we review. I and a team of like 6 other people review it. And I am the one that goes really in depth on people's applications, where I actually listen to podcasts, I watch videos, I read blogs. So when we go through the process, it takes a long time for the reviews, and it's not something that is done lightly. When it comes to it, it's a lot of like how deep and what did they, and I can only really look at what people provide me in their application. So that would be the other thing, is like, if you're doing a lot within CNCF, provide everything you're doing, all the links. I want everything that you're doing. Send me multiple episodes, right? Because I can only make a judgment on what you send me, not.
Oh, we're going to send you all the TikTok links and all.
Yes, do it. I love it.
Yeah, we're also on the socials, yeah. And, if you're becoming an ambassador, what brings it to you as an ambassador?
Yeah, like kind of what the role of an ambassador is. So the best part, I think, of being an ambassador is definitely always the recognition within the community that, you know, the CNCF is recognizing your efforts in the CNCF and the impact that you're making within the community, and that you're a trusted voice for people to go and ask questions. So that's the biggest part for us, is like the role of an ambassador is someone who we're entrusting to carry on the brand for us as well, and really speak to why people should be participating in CNCF and why they should be contributing to our projects. So that's the first and most utmost kind of like role of an ambassador. Beyond that, there's always opportunities, because as Audra noted, we're a very small team, and we have a lot of really great programs, and we get asked to speak at a lot of really great events or participate in a lot of different things, or we want to implement stuff, but we don't have the resources available. And that's where ambassadors really get to come in and shine and use their skills to really support us from the CNCF standpoint. So I've had ambassadors speak at events for us. We launched a program at the beginning of the year called Chat Loop Back Off, which is where we kind of throw someone into a project. We pick a random project and we're like, today you're going to go and try to like spin up Linker D and while you're on live stream for an hour and see what kind of
Cool.
issues you run into.
That's a really nice one. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been great. Ambassadors have volunteered to go through that process and to run it and be the person who's on screen for an hour trying to either successfully deploy a project, or sometimes it's unsuccessful and you get to see them fail. And it's been well received by the community because people feel like, oh, I'm not in this alone, that I struggled with that. And then it's also been well received by the maintainers because then they're like, oh, we need to add more documentation to here, or that's where people are getting problems. Let's go fix that. So that's been great. I've had ambassadors now help lead the project pavilion tours at KubeCon. So we have the project space where projects can host kiosk at KubeCons.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're allowing ambassadors to stand up and take people through that, here, talk a little bit about each of the different projects, and here's this project. As you noted, the tag sustainability meetup was a ambassador-led idea that came forth where an ambassador said, I want to host a global meetup about sustainability. Can I do that? And I said, sure. He came to me and he goes, can I post it in the ambassador Slack channel to see if I can get other ambassadors in different areas involved? And I said, sure. So posted in the Slack channel, had lots of people join in and they ran with it. So that's been pretty cool. And we've had an ambassador who started the KubeTrain EU.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that was really awesome. There's a lot of really great ideas, and being an ambassador, you get to bring those ideas forth to the CNCF for us to kind of help support and highlight. But you also get to talk to the other ambassadors and get the support from the other ambassadors to make your ideas flourish and come to life. So that's kind of where the role is. It's definitely being that representative of the CNCF and being an extension of our team and helping drive programs forward for us and being part of these different opportunities, but also getting to bring in your own ideas and creating opportunities for yourself and for the community.
Yeah. And if I may, there's also some cool perks, like not only the cool jacket and the badges that you get, but also a little bit of budget towards your community groups if you run one with us. That could be on a monthly or bi-monthly or quarterly basis. So there's all kinds of cool perks that highlight your work in different ways. But yeah, it's essentially growing their careers, putting them in front of the community under a microscope.
Where can I apply?
Yeah.
I did this year. I did.
Oh, you applied this year?
I applied. I didn't get it, but hopefully.
Are you going to apply again?
Yeah, of course, because I think I missed some links.
Yeah. If you go to www.cncf.io/people/ambassadors, there's an apply now button. And it is open till September 30th. So anyone who's interested in applying, definitely both of you get your applications in.
I know what we're going to do on Friday.
Nice.
One last question about the community part. How do you ensure that the communities stay diverse and inclusive? Is there anything you have a special focus on when you look at the communities?
Yeah, I think a lot of it starts with organizers or maintainers and leading by example. So if you make sure that having diverse representation is within your core values before you, for example, create a community around a project, or you create an agenda for your KCD, starting from the very get-go with your core team and then branching off into your networks, that's something we highly encourage. And with those monthly meetings, for example, that I have with KCDs, I'm constantly brainstorming ideas and whether people want to take advantage of those meetings with me or not. Like sometimes I'm reaching out saying, hey, I see your program's launched and we didn't even review it. Like, where are all the non-male speakers?
Yeah.
And then we're happy to jump in and help. Like, hey, let me introduce you to some folks.
Nice.
You could do some lightning talks, and just figuring out a solution straight away. But yeah, again, a lot of it comes from your core values as a leader within the community, whether you're a project maintainer or an organizer of events.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then from a CNCF level, representation matters, right? So we're always looking for ways of how we can continue to support diversity and inclusion and accessibility within our community. We're super proud of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Working Group and the work that they're doing. And we're proud to be able to give them that platform that they so rightfully deserve, to be able to continue to educate people within the community and get the support that they need. There's a lot of other diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that are always coming out quite frequently. And from a CNCF standpoint, we always try to help to support those groups as well. I know that there's talks about like a BIPOC group coming out here in the next few months. I think that's something that people are looking into because it is a big portion that is trying to get the representation and the support that they deserve. And we at the CNCF are here to kind of help foster what they need from a foundation level. And we always want to be educated on what we can do better. Right? We are only human. We're learning alongside of everyone. And I think that's the most important part when it comes to fostering and creating a diverse community, is being supportive and opening up your ears and your mind and your heart to being educated on what we could be doing better. Because we know that we could always be doing something better, and we're always striving to do that. So again, it goes back to, and I'll always say this, is like, I've said it with the KCDs, and now I'm saying it with this, is like, we want to hear from the community because it's the only way that we can effectively make change.
Yeah. And also you've got like the certification, the diversity and inclusionary equality certification from CNCF if you want to be an event organizer.
Yeah, absolutely. We make that a requirement for all of our KCDs, that they have to take that training so that way they understand the impact that they can make within their community. And I think that training has been a huge benefit for a lot of people. A lot of people have came back to us afterwards and been like, oh, this was a really great resource for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we require it now for our community groups as well. So if you're applying, that's part of the application. Have you completed this course?
Yeah, I know. Well, it was easy for me because my wife is the DUI professional. So it's the talk of the day around here in the house. So
okay.
But it's nice to have that everybody needs has to take that one. So it's cool.
Yeah.
Looking at what trends do you see shaping the future of tech events?
There's a lot of different things that come into the mind. It's right. For me, I always love to see what trends are coming and surfacing when it comes to like bringing in younger demographics and contributors, and what kind of expectations that they have when it comes to being part of the community overall, and what an event means for them. So there's been a lot of talk about how do we create education-based like training for careers, right? Like there's been a lot of like career growth requests that came from the community. Even how we like market the event, right? Like we've always been traditionally focused on like traditional social channels, right? LinkedIn or Twitter, or I guess X is what it's called now.
Is there a Discord channel?
Discord channel, yeah. Those
Are you
have
doing
kind of been.
TikToks also?
We are starting to do TikToks. We are going to start doing TikToks. We're going to start.
Competitors.
Yeah. I've been strongly advocating for TikTok for the last year. I think anyone that's ever like talked to me, I'm always like, we should be doing a TikTok, and everyone's like, stop talking, Katie. But right. It's about how we engage with the younger folks, because for a project to continue to grow and to stay relevant, you have to bring in younger developers to help support it, and them to feel like they're accepted and engaged in the community, and it's a community that they want to be part of. So for when it comes to like trends for our events, it's really, I think what I encourage people to think about is like, what is the trends that like you're seeing from like younger people and how they kind of engage? I've heard a lot of different people talk about like sustainability within events, and it is something that we're always looking forward to as well, right? And recommending, even on the KCD level, we've had many organizers that have been part of the tag sustainability or have done their own sustainability efforts within their own local communities, providing
a working group like on these topics, for example, specific for those organizers.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's another big trend that like is going to be very, very front and center over the next few years, is like, how are we creating these sustainable, impactful events, and recognizing that like sustainability for a large conference like KubeCon, Cloud Native Con, is much different than sustainability when it comes to a KCD level. Like what a KCD is able to do doesn't always translate to what a KubeCon, Cloud Native Con event can do when you're bringing in 10,000 plus people. Audra, what about you? I don't know what kind of trends you're always looking at.
I mean, it always goes back to open source for me and the transparency aspect. I noticed a lot of people appreciate context and why we're doing things. And so in every little decision that we make, if we can provide that context, then people appreciate like, hey, thank you for giving me that insight. So to speak, making me privy to your changes. A lot of companies run events like businesses, and it is a really large task, especially to run a KubeCon. And so I think if people are sharing more like, hey, this is what's successful for us, or this is why we made the decision, or this is why we're making a change, then people can, I think, appreciate that level of decision making and then give feedback like, hey, this didn't work. What do you think about trying this next year? So yeah, I'm hoping that, the KCDs honestly are a good example of this transparency. Like we've kind of given a lot of the KubeCon strategy to these KCD organizers on a much smaller scale, but like, this is what our team does and this is what works. Maybe you can try it. Or KCDs try something and we're like, okay, us program committee of 5 people, I don't know if you could do a blind review for a program committee of 20 people. Like there's going to be divided expectations, right? But giving it a shot at the KCD level and saying like, hey, let's prioritize the content and the quality of the content, and then let's really hone in on everything else that matters. And diversity is one of those things, for example.
Are those guidelines, are they open source also?
Yeah, we do everything in GitHub in terms of like our recommendations and guidelines. We have repositories for everything.
If another event like that world or somebody else creates a big event, they can learn from you what you've learned from KubeCon.
Yeah, I mean, what we put out there in KCDs, for example, they can definitely learn from our repository. And that's taken from KubeCon. And people are constantly submitting pull requests like, hey, I'd like to add to this repository, which I'm like, thank you, because I'm the one that's editing all the time, And so it's nice to also contribute. on that level. So being a contributor means not just contributing to a project repo, but KCD or a community group repo.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Are you up for the final questions? Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. We always have a final questions, but it's always technical from nature. I'm the technical guy, a more technical guy than Ronald. But how do you see the future of Kubernetes?
The future of Kubernetes, I think, is really going to largely, depend on the different areas that it adopts into, right? We're talking a lot about recently, platform engineering and AI have been a big portion of it. Security has been a larger discussion. It's security. It's always security everywhere, right? But it's definitely one of those things that like we're always looking at what's the next tech trend and how do cloud native applications and Kubernetes and all the projects that we host work into what's coming up and if there's an opportunity to bring in a new project that helps to complement the landscape, right? So I think that's kind of where we stand on like what's next for Kubernetes. It's this kind of being open to what the world brings forth and are saying is the newest trends and how we kind of adapt and adopt to it and make space for new people to be part of it, whether that's from the AI portion of it or platform engineering or security. It's just finding the right projects and the right people to be able to move the foundation and each individual project moving forward. And that's the best part about, I think, open source is every day we have new people coming in and contributing, especially when we start to broaden the landscape of projects that come in is like we could bring in a new project that has a subset of like maintainers and contributors that then start to contribute to other projects because the way that it works within the stack that they're working on, it just kind of flows nicely, right? The best example I have is like I know a lot of maintainers that work on both Prometheus and Thanos. And that kind of happened really nicely because like Thanos came in and a lot of people who were working on Thanos hadn't been in the CNCF prior or, were kind of starting to come in and then they were like, oh, actually these two complement each other and we're going to start working together. And that happens a lot more than I think people recognize and realize. So that's kind of where I see, for me, the future is like just getting to be part of like that next trend and how we help to support the community to be part of it.
And it's like for the next 10 years. And Audra?
Yeah, I think just like Linux, Kubernetes is probably going to be everywhere in the sense that it's just built into our everyday lives and it's not something we have to really think about anymore. And it's all the projects that support or work well with it.
Awesome.
Nice. So
we're here to stay, Ronald.
Yeah, we're here to stay for the coming years. Yeah, nice to know. Yeah. You're not done with me yet, Jan.
No, definitely not.
Audra and Katie, thank you so much for taking your time to have this lovely chat with us. And to having, it was great having you on our small but ever-growing podcast. And really hope to talk to you again in the future and see you at the great events like the KCDs and the KubeCons.
Well, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure